Hey, good morning to you out there in Podcastville land, wherever it is that you're at. Appreciate y'all dropping by the Higher Grounds podcast here at the International Studios of the Higher Grounds podcast.
International.
And in the compound of the Galilee Baptist Church in the dungeon. That's what we call it. We're deep in the belly of the earth, not near Hades or anything, but we're kind of underground here, and I feel safe. If there was a tornado or a hurricane that would pass through, that we would be okay. We'd be okay, and so you can feel safe being here.
Truth,
Dr. Bailey.
Good to see you, Brother.
How are you?
I'm doing extremely well.
Are you a doctor guy? Do you have one of those papers?
I do. I have an earned degree from about 15 years ago, but all my Bible college students, I don't require any of them to call me Dr. Bailey. It's not a matter of conviction, but just own personal humility.
It's weird, isn't it?
So I keep myself humble by not letting people call me doctor, and I wear white socks with a black suit. That keeps me humble.
No, that just means
I actually knew a man that did that. That's why I said that.
On purpose?
On purpose. He said it kept him humble, and he took cold showers. It humbled him.
I will tell you who that man is. Let me assume here, he's dead now.
He's
dead. Gone home to be with the Lord.
Yep.
Yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about. And we will not call that dear brother's name.
He wasn't really humble because if he told you and told me.
He didn't tell me that. Yeah. He didn't tell me. I just knew he wore white socks all the time.
Yeah.
Didn't know the reasoning. I just figured it was fashion ignorance.
Humility.
Yeah.
He said it humbles him.
Well, God bless his soul.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he has by now. I'm sure he got there and the Lord said, you didn't have to do that.
You didn't have to do that. Yeah.
Oh, mercy. Man, I reposted this past week a statement made by Spencer Smith. You know Spencer?
From years ago, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
we grew up both. He's a Georgia boy like me.
Is he? I didn't know that. Yeah. I thought he was Ohio.
He was outside of Atlanta, but
so I reposted this, and I don't think this was necessarily something that was original with him, but here's what he posted. He said, the early church wanted to know, what must I do to be saved? Today's church is asking, what can I do and still be saved?
What a statement.
Isn't that true?
Yeah.
I mean, that is the truth.
That's classic Spencer Smith.
Well, you know him better than I.
Yeah.
I never have really known him. He and I, he's called me a time or two, and we've conversed on the phone, and he certainly has garnered a following.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of people
who,
and I talked to him one day about all of the editing that was done on the Third Adam and a lot of the videos that he puts out, and he said, I learned it all myself. I said, how did you learn all of that? He said, I just went on YouTube like everybody else does and watched videos. And
he just watched a lot of Alex Jones until he got it right.
That's exactly right. See? Poor old Alex. Don't you feel sorry for Alex Jones?
I think Alex Jones probably watches this podcast.
He probably does.
From that.
Yeah, he's Alex Jones. Poor guy. He's lost a lot of money, hasn't he?
Yeah,
lost
he got
everything.
For, I think it's $5 billion. Yeah, he's in the hole for $5 billion because of the Sandy Hook propagation. Yeah. Anyway, I'm glad we're in a compound.
Nuts. Yeah.
I'm glad we're underground.
Yeah, we're underground in our little old compound.
Absolutely.
And the only thing we talk about is, people that fly in planes with a bunch of girls. Please forgive us, Lord.
Trouble.
Please forgive us, Lord. Yeah. I'd say that dear preacher is probably my wife's favorite.
Really?
She loves Lester Roloff.
Is that right?
Man, she, because my wife, I'm going to be honest with you, my wife loves hide on the wall, blood in the cracks, and guts in the floor. My wife loves that kind of preaching.
Mine does too. The one of the strangest standards I've ever heard in my life was a Lester Roloff message. I was a very young Christian.
Yeah. What was the
family altar program came on in the mornings
when
I was young, and I was working for a man in the church that I got saved in, and he preached one day against deodorant.
Really?
Yes, sir. He said God made your body to sweat, and you roll that plastic up under your arms to keep yourself from sweating. No wonder you're getting cancer and you're obese. He said, don't wear that. He preached against deodorant.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, my, I know a lot of people come to youth camp will take that very seriously.
If you step into the dorms on Monday night, not Friday night, if you step in the dorms on Monday night on the boys' side, you're going to know forevermore
absolutely
that them youngins they can't
in
spell it and they don't know what it is.
But he also preached against coffee, so
Yeah, I knew that I had a problem with him somewhere.
Right.
Hey, let me say this. Did you know he was a cancer survivor?
I did not. No.
That was why he had the radical diet. You know, how radical he was in his diet and the protection of his body. My understanding is he was a cancer survivor, and the way that he survived was by
dietary.
Yes, yeah. And then George Malcolmus. I don't know if you've ever heard that name.
Never heard that name.
You will have heard of his ministry, Hallelujah Acres. Maybe it was in Shelby, North Carolina. George Malcolmus. I heard his story. He was a preacher up in maybe New York, and he came down with cancer, and he resigned his church and went to Corpus Christi and sat under Roloff, and Roloff rearranged his diet, and he cured himself of cancer through a diet. And of course, his line of thinking, Malcolmus's line of thinking, is you eat raw fruits, vegetables, and nuts. That's all you eat is raw, and you drink carrot juice and distilled water, nothing processed. And so no meat, zero meat. And of course, Roloff would eat fish,
Absolutely.
But no meat.
He didn't eat any other kind of meat at all?
Not that I know of. Wow. He may have eaten chicken, but it would have had to have been organic, no doubt.
I see.
But he ate fish.
Incredible. I didn't know that. No, I'm not as familiar. I read his life story written by his wife, but it didn't say anything about cancer in the story, so maybe it was
Roloff. Have you ever been to Corpus? Have you ever been to Peoples?
I have not, no.
I preached out there. I don't know if you knew that I did that, but I preached out there. Yeah. But prior to, of course, it was after he had passed, needless to say. But I preached out there, and the sad thing for me when I went out there, the ministry properties at that time were in such disarray that a lot of the only way you could have fixed some of it was with a can of gas and a match. I mean, it was in that bad shape, but it was unique and nostalgic to preach there behind the same pulpit that Dr. Roloff, one of the greats of all time.
Incredible.
What a man, what a man, and nothing disparaging toward him whatsoever. He was a unique firebrand that God used in his day. He was a student at Baylor University.
That is correct.
Yeah. Yep. That was Southern Baptist School at one time.
That is correct. I think it's still, by name, it's still under the flag of the Southern Baptist Convention, but I'm not sure that they share the same convictions anymore.
How are things going over in the upstate?
Wonderful, brother. We've had 3 families visiting the church. All of them intend to join. We've got about 5 or 6 to baptize right now. We're in that season, Brother Wells. You know how that comes and goes. Just like planting seed, you'd have to do that in a season. And we've been faithful to plant some seed. We've seen some people saved, and the Lord is adding to the church as well with some families that are joining.
Amen.
And,
your buddy Pat Creed's calling in. I'm not going to answer it, but he called my phone.
He called your phone.
Yeah, he called my phone.
Called me yesterday.
Yeah, did he?
Yeah. We talked about you yesterday.
Pat Creed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I hope that was okay.
He said he's very encouraged by his fellowship with you, with me, with Michael Poindexter, with Chad Watson.
Wonderful.
He said he was encouraged by that. Other people said we're just an echo chamber, but
I have heard that.
I'm glad.
I have not. I don't really even understand what an echo chamber is.
Yeah.
I understand what an echo is.
Yeah.
And I understand what a chamber is.
I guess it means we just bounce our thoughts off of each other and really don't reach outside of our circle. I think
the only chamber I know of is on a gun.
Yeah. Yeah.
And some of the guns that I shoot, if you shoot them in the right place, do make an echo. So evidently we're shooting our weapon.
I prefer the word concussion
high caliber
to echo.
Concussion or percussion?
Yeah, that too.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Well,
here we are.
It's funny. Yeah, it's funny when sometimes when you do what we do and we attach ourselves to some of the topics that we attach ourselves to, and then all we do is, we don't make a we don't make a blatant bless God stand. We just say, this is questionable to me.
True.
When we do that,
Yeah.
it's amazing how that you
Yeah.
stir the ire of some people.
It raises eyebrows.
But if they really realized how much I don't care,
yeah.
they wouldn't waste their time, I don't
Absolutely,
think.
brother. I don't waste any. I don't lose any sleep over people being critical.
Well, if there's one thing I lose none of, is sleep. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I get precious little of it, so I
Brother
take
Wells,
advantage of what I can.
We say we don't intentionally be controversial. We take on topics that tend to evolve into controversial subjects. One thing I admire about you is that does not create any trepidation with you or fear.
No.
You have no problem calling out error when it needs to be called out and correcting things when they need to be corrected. But you do it with the right spirit. And
you can.
You absolutely can.
You can.
Absolutely.
I can disagree with a man on, and we can have a spirited, I won't call it heated, we can have a spirited discussion about our disagreements. Mm-hmm. And then I can call him tomorrow and say, hey, let's go get lunch. That doesn't bother me whatsoever. But a lot of people take these things very personal.
I saw something in the scripture several years ago. Jesus and John the Baptist never had a disagreement. Never. Not one time. On a personal level, John was the one that said he must increase and I must decrease. John saw this coming. He knew that his ministry was, the window of his ministry was closing. The window of Jesus' ministry was opening. There was a transition of John off the scene, transition of Jesus' ministry onto the scene. You know who had the problems? The disciples of John and the disciples of Jesus. It was not the two men that had problems; it was the followers.
What about that?
And so, if you allow your ministry to rise and fall on what your followers say about some kind of disagreement that apparently has happened, then you're going to be a very sad individual.
Sure.
I'm not
and
bound
you're gonna constantly be in a stir.
Absolutely. You talk about
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't subject myself to what all of my followers think about things. That's for sure. Yeah.
No, I don't know if I had this conversation with you, but I had it with a friend recently. I'm an odd duck. Yeah, I understand that. Mm-hmm. It's a personality thing.
So was Lester Roloff.
He was.
Yeah.
He was. And Sammy was an odd duck.
Dr. Seidler was too.
Yeah. And I'm of no quality of the caliber of those men. It's just I'm a different guy, and I don't fit in. Somebody asked me about who my group is. I really don't have a group. I don't fit in with groups and with a lot of folks. I have some friends and I have some acquaintances, and they come and go. But I feel fine in my skin. There's a lot of people that really have a need to belong.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying I don't have that need.
Those are the people that call you 2 or 3 times a week and they just want to bounce something off of you and get your approval on something. And I don't have to do that with, I don't think anybody, to be honest with you. You and I are great friends, but we don't call each other every week.
No.
We just, I know what Brother Wells is doing and Brother Wells knows what I'm doing. And, if there were some extraordinary situation, but to be honest with you, when you and I talk, it's generally about things that are pleasing to one another. I mean, hunting, guns,
the Bible,
what kind of Bible you're carrying, the Bible, what kind of technology you're using. Sometimes revolving what we're doing right now, and we don't really. We just know where we are. We both have the same North Star in our lives, and so we know we're going in the same direction. Yeah.
Well, we've got. You have a friend, and I have. He's a dear friend to me, which is Doug Raines, and Doug and I rarely ever talk. Yeah. I mean, we're dear friends. Yeah. We talk, occasionally, and then
what do you preach together?
And when we get together, it's like we've been side by side neighbors forever. So. Yep. And I like that. I like that.
Absolutely.
Hey, let's talk about something. I've had some young preachers who have sent some messages to me and ask about, Brother Wells, you're an outliner. You outline texts, and how do you do that? I mean, I want to know, because particularly we have a very large following of, I say large, that's relative. We have a following of men in the mountains, great guys, and they preach in little mountain churches, and they're good men. And some of them have said, we preach and we come up in the mountains in these mountain churches, and we hear you preach these outlines. And how do y'all do that anyway? And I know that you are an outliner and have been for years. Where did you learn your outlining from?
Homiletics class was Stennett Ballou for me. 5 years he taught on Monday nights at Faith Baptist College. Of course, that's seen its demise since then. Faith Baptist College is a thing of the past, but he was the master. I mean, there was no ifs, ands, or buts with his outlining. I mean, he was the absolute best I had ever seen.
There was nobody greater at alliterated outlining than
there may have been
Stennett
somebody
Ballou.
in the past that I'd never met.
Who was his influence in regard
That's
to?
a great question.
Was it Alford? I mean, Stephen Alford was probably on the cutting edge of where we're at now with outlining.
Stennett Ballou had a personal relationship with John Phillips.
Well, that would say a lot.
Exploring the scriptures, exploring Genesis, exploring Daniel, exploring Matthew.
I got to see him in person.
I never did meet him.
I got to see him in person there at Faith, and I think Stennett introduced him that day.
Yeah, they were good friends. And I think that Brother Ballou shared that passion for outlining with John Phillips, and John Phillips is a master outliner. I mean, his outlines at the beginning of his books are well worth. I never just go through to a text in his books. I look at his outline to begin with, and generally the first 10 to 20 pages of his books are going to be outline related. And it gives you a structure, and that's the idea.
Well, here's what I would call an outline. An outline is nothing more than a skeletal system.
Yeah.
It's
a communicative tool.
Right. It's the arms, it's the fingers, it's the ribs, it's the hip bones, it's the legs that we're going to go hang the meat on.
You have a massive amount of information to disseminate to your people.
Sure.
And even if you take one verse of Scripture, which I've done many, many times. Matter of fact, there's times I've taken one word out of a verse and spent 45 minutes expounding that word. And it takes so many lefts and so many rights. In order to keep people's following, you have to have some sort of structured way to do that. It's an art.
It is.
You should never become a slave to it. If the people that are listening to you preach are moved and impressed by your outline and they forget the text, you have missed it by a country mile.
Absolutely.
That's not the idea. The poetry of it, the alliteration, front door alliteration, back door alliteration, double alliteration, all of that is really catchy. But if it doesn't help
explain for some of our guys what you mean by front door alliteration and back door alliteration.
Generally, you want to. Brother Ballou always taught us that you got to hide the key to the house at the back door or at the front door. If you have a key hidden at your property, most of the time it's going to be at the front door or the back door. And he said, so you got to unlock the text at the front door or unlock it at the back door. And so you want to have some alliteration at the front of every point that you make or at the end of the point that you make, or you can do it by rhyme. I love doing it by rhyme. I think that probably is as reasonable and memorable as.
Give us an idea.
Yeah. So redemption, salvation, persuasion.
So your rhyme is either going to come from a
Suffix.
prefix or a suffix.
You want a prefix or a suffix that rhymes, and that's different than using. Now, listen, everybody can make an outline with P's and R's. Those are the easiest. That happens a lot.
I do.
But I oftentimes will set that aside and choose a more difficult thing because it makes you study. I mean, it makes me push back from the desk and say to myself, what is a word that captures this thought better than 5 words?
Mm-hmm.
So if I can really search through my thesaurus for that one word,
that's the key.
Yeah.
The key is you need yourself a good thesaurus.
Yeah.
Whether that thesaurus is digital or one in your hand like a Roget's, either way, for your alliteration's sake, your thesaurus is very needful.
It was actually your dad that showed me that you can get on a computer and look up words in a thesaurus, and so it became a favorite in the computers that I use.
I do that.
It was actually
I
your
do that
dad to show me, hey, you don't have to have that book in your hand.
I have dictionary.com downloaded as an app to my devices, and so we'll do an episode sometime on devices.
Yeah.
But that dictionary.com allows me to look up words and definition, and then what it does is it allows me to toggle over to the thesaurus side of dictionary.com and look at the same words and the numbers of synonyms.
Generally, when I'm making my way through a text, I don't have alliteration in mind immediately. That is not the primary focus.
Right.
My primary focus, I think it was Tozier that said that words are trucks. The words are just the vehicle that you're using to unload the truth.
Exactly.
And so if you can find a word that captures the truth, that's the whole idea. But now I want my outline to represent the text, not the text to represent the outline.
Right.
If you do it the other way around, you've gotten it backwards. And you can be impressive. I've heard some very impressive outlines, and I know they're impressive because the guy who preached it told me it was impressive. So, but I'm not.
And he doesn't lie.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Right. Yeah, he also told me he was the greatest. But I'm not a slave to that kind of stuff. I just preached a couple of Wednesday nights ago, and I did not alliterate what I said because I just couldn't. I did not feel.
Yes.
One statement, and Brother Blue's name keeps coming up. One statement that Brother Blue taught us on night number 1, never deviate to alliterate. What a statement. And I've never forgotten. I didn't have to write that down.
And he alliterated that statement.
Yeah, exactly. And it's you never deviate from your passage in order to give it rhyme or give it some sort of alliteration. You have to say what the text says. If you don't say what the text says, it doesn't matter what kind of words you're putting with it. You have prostituted the Word of God by doing that. You're trying to make it beautiful instead of making it spiritual. So I'm not into that kind of stuff. I outline most everything that I do because I have Clemson students in our church. I've pastored in other places that have university students. I seem to always, not because it's me, but just every community I've been in, we have college students around us, whether they're Bible college students, seminary students. Many of them are secular university students. And without exception, the Clemson students leave with pages upon pages upon pages of notes. And they'll tell me after the service, you're easier to follow than our college professors, and I ask them why, and they say because of how you put things, and that is the result of working an outline. If I get lazy, I won't do one, but if I'll put a little bit more effort into a text, I'll do my best to give people something they can remember.
Okay, so let me. He's mentioned Stennett Ballou. I've mentioned Stennett. Brother Stennett went home to be with the Lord in 2019 or 2020.
Yeah,
when was it? Was it the same year Brother Sammy died?
It was right before Brother Allen.
Okay, so it was either 2019 or 2020 when Brother Stennett passed away. I knew Brother Stennett from the time I was a tiny boy. His son David and I played together. So, wow. I mean, that's how far back we go with that family. And Brother Stennett, if you go on to sermonaudio.com, there's probably 35 or 40 messages. Let me go see real quickly. There's 45 messages of Brother Stennett on Sermon Audio. Mm-hmm. A charge to preachers, stop telling God, the home, part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, faith, promise, giving, a prayer for laborers, will of God in Christ, and so forth and so on. My first suggestion to those of you who are wanting to learn how to outline is to go on Sermon Audio, type in Stennett Ballou, and that is spelled Stinnett, Stennett Ballou. Ballou is spelled Ballew. Yep. And then listen to, let's start with 5 messages. Go listen to 5 of Brother Stennett's messages. And then as soon as you sit down, make sure you have a pad of paper and a pencil and outline, look at his outline. And Brother Stennett's outline will be crystal clear. Yeah. It's not just for him to guide him through the preaching of the text. He's going to deliver the outline. That was what he did.
Yeah.
And so I think it would be just a tremendous way.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned a minute ago double
just to
alliteration.
add, Harvest
Go
Time
ahead.
broadcast is still being broadcasted. That's Stennett Blues broadcast, and that
Harvest Time
Harvest
broadcast.
Time broadcast, and that is that's been on over 100 stations for a long time.
Okay.
You can still get that.
Harvest Time broadcast. That's
Yeah.
Brother Stennett Blues.
Very much expository preaching on it.
And you'll enjoy it. So, explain. You said a minute ago double alliteration. I'm sure some guy said, "What in the world is that?"
Yeah. So generally, I'm not a single alliteration guy. I like to have at least two words that start with the same letter. Sometimes 3 words.
Yeah, or starts with the same letter and then a suffix the same on the second word.
That brings 2 words in a sentence together. It just gives more of a rhyme to it, and it becomes a catchy phrase that people can remember a whole lot better if it has 2 R's, if it has 2 W's, if it has
Well, for instance, like. Sometimes you can use the word divine. If you're preaching a message about God, you can use the word divine. You're looking through the characteristics of God. You can use the word divine, and then let's say it's a divine revelation, it's a divine presentation, it's a divine salvation, it's a divine obligation, depending upon where you're at in the text and what the text is playing out for you. Now, we've been at this for 26 minutes. Here's what I want to do, because you and I got a whole lot more to say. We're going to go into Psalms chapter number 1 for next week. You need to pull your pad of paper out and
we're going to show you.
Yeah, we're going to show you. We're going to march through a text. This will be Psalms 1, the 6 verses in Psalms 1 next week. And so let's just cut it off right there.
Sure.
Okay? Because we're 26, 27 minutes in, and I know some of you are itching to learn some of this. Let me say this. When you sit down with the text, here's the first thing that I'll go over next week.
Please.
With each verse, go ahead and pick one word. It doesn't have to alliterate or rhyme. You pick one word that you would say sums up each individual verse. One word.
Yeah.
And you've got one word for verse 1, one word for verse 2, one word for verse 3. And as you march through there, word might be, well, I see loyalty in this verse. And then you might say, well, I see this guy's disciplined in this verse. And as you begin to write these single words down, then we're going to start trying to put them together in an alliterated form. Okay? Yeah. All right. Hey, thank you for tuning in. And as always, keep pressing on the upward way, drinking coffee, enjoying yourself, catching fish, shooting stuff. And we'll see you next week.